The UN Secretary General is calling on Israel to immediately halt its large-scale military operation in the occupied West Bank. For now, Israel presses ahead and claims to have killed 5 Palestinian militants in a gun battle in a mosque on Thursday. Several cities have been targeted in the assault, which has seen hundreds of Israeli troops backed by helicopters, drones, and armored personnel carriers enter the Palestinian territory.
Here in the shattered streets of Krämer, Israel says it has already achieved a significant success in its largest operation in the occupied West Bank for years. That's after local Islamic Jihad leader Mohammed Jabbar, seen here in file footage, was killed in a firefight. Israeli troops had tried and failed before to eliminate Jabbar, who was accused of carrying out numerous attacks on Israelis. But Palestinian civilians are also once again paying the cost of the Israeli raids.
We were asleep and woke up to the gunshots at around 3:30 a.m. I started waking my wife up, telling her the army are shooting at the house. I was barely able to wake her up, and they hit the house with a rocket. We ran, my wife and I, to the other room. They fired another rocket. My son and his wife are on the second floor. They hit them with a rocket.
While this family were able to escape their home with their lives, Israeli forces roaming the streets in search of militants have created serious problems for the healthcare system in the areas being raided. Medical workers said troops are blocking access for ambulances.
The Israeli army refuses entirely to allow ambulances to enter, whether uncoordinated or coordinated. Even if we are allowed to enter, as you see, the ambulances cannot access the camps or even reach humanitarian cases and people with diseases.
The UN has urged Israel to ensure injured people can obtain medical care, warning that the operation in the West Bank was fueling an already explosive situation.
Our correspondent Tania Krämer sent us an update with the latest from Tulkarem in the occupied West Bank.
So I'm standing here on the main road to the refugee camp Nur Shamis. Now you can see here some of the military vehicles coming in. We've been seeing this in the course of the past hours. Also when we came there was an explosion. Now I would say it's a tense quiet here. We cannot go further at this point. This is where most of the journalists here are standing right now. Now, we came in through Tulkarem city, and the city is almost deserted. People we've been talking to in the morning said they barely go out of the house. They stay in the safety of their house. They're very worried about what is happening. Of course, it's not the first time they're experiencing such tense situation or military raids happening across the occupied West Bank on a daily basis. Now also coming into the refugee camp here behind the camera, we see the ambulances waiting and some of the fire brigades also waiting then to move in. Now Israel says this is a major counter-terrorism operation. They say they go in because attacks are emanating from the northern West Bank. They also say that the camps are flooded with weapons and infrastructure that is financed by Iran. Now, right now we are seeing some of the vehicles here, the fire brigades moving into the camp. So people here are saying, they don't know how long this will take. Also, the army said yesterday, this is the first phase. So we have to wait and see how long this large-scale operation will take place here in the northern West Bank.
That was DW correspondent Tania Krämer in Tulkarem in the occupied West Bank. Hans-Jakob Schindler is the senior director of the Extremism Project and joins me now. Welcome back to the show. Now, you and I were speaking on the second day of Israel's large-scale military campaign in the occupied West Bank. Why is this happening now?
Look, there have been, of course, a spike in incidents of attacks emanating from the West Bank. There has been the unsuccessful, luckily, suicide bomb attempt in Tel Aviv a couple of days ago. What I can see and what I hear is there's, of course, a preparation from the Israeli side because they assume Iran has taken the second option. There was always 2 options that Iran would have taken in response to the killing of Haniyeh. One was the very spectacular, very open, very massive rocket attack option that it did in April after the attack on its embassy in Damascus, or a much more long-term, but potentially far more harmful terrorist campaign. Now, we've seen an exchange of fire between Hezbollah and Israel in the last couple of days. We've seen a far more aggressive campaign of the Houthis against shipping. There's an oil tanker that is about to sink in the Red Sea. And the expectation apparently seems to be that part of that response is now a stage where the terror structures that still exist, that are loyal to Iran in the Palestinian territories, are primarily in the West Bank. In Gaza, Hamas is hemmed in, and they want to prevent this from materializing.
Israeli raids are part of everyday life in the West Bank. How is this operation different? Is this just a matter of scale and intensity, or is there something more to it?
No, it's much larger and much more intensive. You've seen the heavy machinery in the images that you showed. There were helicopters involved, there were drones involved, there were airstrikes involved. So this is a really large-scale incursion operation in the West Bank that we haven't seen really in several years. So there is a major concern, apparently, on the Israeli side that the situation may really majorly escalate in the West Bank, and they're doing this preemptively.
Analysts say the West Bank is at this point in time at boiling point. The UN has called for an immediate halt to the raids. Could this operation turn the West Bank into the next Gaza, so to say?
Well, we hope not, because, I mean, Gaza is really no longer existing as far as infrastructure is concerned. But, of course, the risk with these kind of preemptive military operations is we are in an extremely tense situation in the region. More tense than we've seen in many, many years. Any escalation on any aspects by any side always bears the major danger of getting out of hand, inadvertently slipping into a more larger scale regional war situation. So this is, of course, another problem that exacerbates the situation.
How does this tie into the larger campaign against Hamas and Islamist extremism in the region?
Well, the campaign in Hamas really has to be centered in Gaza. Hamas does exist in the West Bank, but it's nowhere near as far as its structures or influence is concerned, simply because of the fact there are competitors. The Islamic State is stronger in the West Bank than it ever was in Gaza. There are other Palestinian resistance groups, some Islamic terrorists that are competing with Hamas. And then, of course, there's the Palestinian National Authority, who is not going to be strengthened by this massive military raid, whose security forces also oppose Islamist extremism and Hamas, who are a danger to the PNA as they are to Israel.
That's Hans-Jakob Schindler, director of the Extremism Project. Thank you. Always great speaking to you.
Thank you so much.
And before we continue, there are some breaking news on the war in Gaza that we want to share with you. According to the World Health Organization, Israel has agreed to 3 days of humanitarian pauses starting on Sunday. They will take place in different parts of the Strip. This is to allow for polio vaccinations to be given to hundreds of thousands of children under the age of 10. This comes after a baby in the Palestinian territory contracted the first confirmed case in 25 years.